everybody. It's your boy coming at you from the top of my house, 2 flights up from the kitchen, just below the roof. That's right. Where else? In my attic. It's your boy, the nonprofit sector connector, Tommy D. A little bit of a gravelly voice, a little bit of a late night last night, but an old friend of mine, I was just telling my friend Kofo, an old friend of mine told me, Tommy D, listen, you want to go out with the night owls. You got to wake up and soar with the Eagles, which is exactly what I tell my kids, especially when they're like, hey, man, there's a Mets game on. Can we watch the Mets game? And I said, you don't wake up like you're supposed to in the morning. If you do that, if you figure out how to wake up and do the things that you're supposed to do in the morning, well, then you can do the things that you want to do in the evening. But again, everything in moderation. But I will tell you, why am I a little gravelly? Why am I a little tired? I'm going to share something with you. I'll show you this. And this, just to tell you, this is not about that it was given to me. It's about the organization. So it says, Tommy DeMesa, for your selfless dedication and commitment to nonprofit organizations, and particularly post-tour processing. So last night, my friend Robin Canariato of Post-Tour Processing, by the way, the show's called Philanthropy and Phocus, if I haven't said that yet. Robin Canariato and her team honored me and a bunch of folks down at Russo's on the Bay, out in Howard Beach, Queens. For those of you who are local, you know where I'm talking about. And this is an organization that provides mental health services and counseling services to mainly police officers and first responders. Look, there's a lot of veterans in the room. I brought a bunch of my friends there who lead nonprofit organizations because I thought there would be good synergies. You know, I see an opportunity like an evening like last night, and I said, I could fill this table with my parents and my siblings and my children, my wife, or not that those people aren't proud of me, or I could utilize this opportunity to bring people together. And if you go around telling the world you're the nonprofit sector connector, well, listen, kid, you better do it. You actually better go do the thing. You say, you know, it's one of those brands, Kofo, it's like right in the name, man. It's like, it's like you say, here it is. It's people can't go like, what exactly does he do? Well, that's exactly what I do, right? Like that is the thing. Like that's what I do. I connect nonprofits. So that is my friend Kofo Anifalaje. Did I get it? How did I? Yes, I practiced. That is my friend Kofo chuckling in the background, who's here with me. If you're just listening, you're going to hear our voices. If you're watching, you're going to see us too. And we're going to get into all that. But I just want to say, I wrote some notes. So last night leads into social capital, right? I joke about it. This is not self-deprecating, but I am only as good as the people I'm surrounded with. I'm only as good as the people I'm connected to. I had a great opportunity earlier this week to go out to an event on Long Island for Long Island Business News's corporate citizenship event. See a bunch of folks that I hadn't seen in a while, reconnect and make some new connections with a lot of Long Island folks. But it's all about the people we know. It's all about the social capital. And that leads us to how we get to this conversation today. Because last summer, I was looking for some coursework to do. I was looking for something to get involved with. I said, you know what? I love this nonprofit stuff, this nonprofit work, this sector, the whole thing, and I want to learn more. I want to be more of an asset. I want to be more knowledgeable. And ever the student, I want to learn how to be effective and how to be an asset. So I look around and I find this organization called the Institute for Nonprofit Practice, which you've heard me reference several times here on the program, and I had this fortunate opportunity to connect with certainly a large group, but then we had our smaller cohort that we met on Thursday nights, and man, I look forward to that meeting. And you've met my friend Michael Partis here on the show. You've met Tammy Ellen from Sober St. Patrick's Day. You've met my friend Maheen Kaleem, everybody on the show just a couple weeks ago. And today, my friend Kofo is here from the North Star Fund. And I will say, it's always one of those sad things when something ends and sort of culminates, because when we're forced to get together, and I don't mean forced in that way, but when there's already a meeting on our calendar and we know we're going to see each other, and then things happen when something ends, when the coursework ends, when the project ends, when the job ends, whatever it might be, it's more difficult to keep in touch because it's not scheduled. So I will say this, Kofo, I'm glad you're here with me. I missed Thursday evenings when we were all together. And I think actually, to be honest, I think that was my responsibility, was to keep everybody together. So I will own that right here, world. For all of you who are listening, and now this is forever and eternity, I have to fix that particular situation. But I was texting our buddy Michael, and Kaz Alexander was on the show. Kaz wasn't in our little Thursday evening click, but he became a buddy of mine too. So it's just like how this networking thing goes. So Kofo, first of all, before I read some of your background and bio, I just want to say hello. Good morning. How are you?
Good morning.
What's going on? How are you today?
I'm amazing, and I'm so excited for being here. I'm really thankful for you inviting me to your, amazing, Fox Den or
It's an
awesome
attic.
space. I
Yeah,
feel so privileged for, being among the number, that you've invited here. So,
I
um,
appreciate it.
yeah,
I,
excited.
I I appreciate it. Well, I will say, listen, from afar, I was sort of like trying to learn as much as I could from you. And if it's cool with you, I'd like to continue to do that forever, only for the next 50 years while I'm around, because I know that I know what I know is very little. And that's, again, not to beat me up. It's just there's so much we can know about life and relationships, but certainly what we can know about nonprofit, but what we can know about philanthropy and what we can, some of what we're going to talk about today will be trust-based philanthropy, which Kofo is really going to give us. She's going to take us to school a little bit on that because I think we all need to learn that. But before we do that, so Kofo studied political science and African American studies at Wesleyan University, completed her graduate degree at Carnegie Mellon in public policy and management. And during her graduate school time, she was the policy director at an organization called New Voices Pittsburgh. After she gets her master's, she goes back to Brooklyn, right, where your roots are, right? And I want to read this quote from your mom. And your mom had said to you, be useful, be of service, and make the world a better place. Be useful, be of service, and make the world a better place. Man, if those are not words to live by for each and every one of us, what a different world it would be if everybody started their day like that, thinking about that. Right? I mean, without getting mushy and emotional, can you tell me about that quote and what that really means to you?
Sure. I think it's funny. It's definitely a helpful quote, now as I'm an adult. And I think as I've grown older, I've definitely taken it and maybe romanticized it a little bit. I think, as I was younger, though, at least I heard it. I took it in, a little bit more assertive and aggressively. It felt a little bit more like, don't just stand there, be useful, what are you
Yeah, yeah.
doing? Make yourself useful. What do you, don't, no one, this world doesn't need another useless person,
So
do something.
maybe we said a little differently than how you and I.
Yeah, exactly. But that's what age and growth
Yeah,
is for. We
yeah,
take
no doubt.
our understandings, manifest in different ways. But I think that's what life is. And so for me, I think as life happens, and I think Tommy, you had a opportunity for to hear sort of the trajectory of my career as one of the presentations in our group study. But just as anyone, I had to go through the process of figuring out what was my path. What's my path? Do I choose more unfulfilling path? In search of in the goal of just like making money, or just comfort, a life of stability? Or do I choose something that's more fulfilling to me, that's more a path that's more interesting, that's more just like um, connected to heart for me? Or even though it may not be what's more just what may make more money or may bring in more resources for me individually.
Mhm.
And as I, was going through that process, just in my earlier years, that my mother just in my head just always came back to me. It was just always my grounding. Like, how can I be useful? What is the useful thing for me to do? What makes sense? What is the service that I want to offer? And so that's what that's what helped guide me to ultimately to North Star Fund, as I was searching for a place to a home organization to work with.
It's incredible. And look, I my intention is to stick around for 50 years. At 44, I think that's a pretty good number. And I feel like I've worked out a deal with the universe where, because I figure
Definitely.
if I say it enough, it's going to happen, right?
Easy,
So,
easy.
but let's just say that didn't happen for some reason. I wasn't here. So I have four kids, as you know, Kofo, and certainly some of the folks who listen to this show know that. And my youngest guy, he's 7. He's going to be 8 soon. And when he says to me, hey, Dad, when are we, I want to do a day of service. When are we going to do another day of service? Like,
Mhm.
that to me is it, man. Like,
Yeah.
and that's, and I always try to be careful because I always feel like I'm pushing the ego thing, but because it ain't about like that I'm out there doing service. I do it because I love it, but I do it because I think it inspires other people. Now, if I inspire certainly the 5 people that live in my house aside from me to go out and do service, my wife and I worked at a pantry, a number of months ago, right back in my neighborhood here. And the 4 kids certainly have all been out doing different things. Man, that's it. That's the inspiration. Like, that's
Yeah.
what we're supposed to be doing. How are you going to be useful? How are you going to be of service? How are you going to make the world a better place? Shout out to our friend Michael Portis, because I remember, Michael shared his story, and I said this to him when he was on the show here. I was like, what are you going to do, Michael Partis? Because somebody challenged him when he was younger in his college years. What are you going to do? Like, how are you going to make the difference? And I think like we got to push each other. We got
Yeah.
get it. Let's do it. Like, it's great. Everybody has a lot of cool things to say. What
Mhm.
about? So what are you going to do? And I felt that a lot last night, especially in a room full of first responders and veterans for sure. I want to talk about, when you were growing up, was there a certain point, in addition to what your mom had said, were you involved in nonprofit? Was there, if I'm not mistaken, I remember stuff about the church, right? The church was always important to you.
Mhm.
So, maybe we could speak a little bit about that and just kind of where as a younger person.
Sure. Yeah. For me, I definitely grew up in a church. So, as you mentioned, I was born and raised in Brooklyn, in Bedside, Brooklyn, and
Do or die, do or die. Joe Turner from Exponents told me, we said it in the break before we started, do or die, Bed-Stuy, right?
that's right,
I had
do
to
or
get it
die,
in.
Bed-Stuy. And we were heavily involved in the church. I grew up at Bridge Street AME Church, and my mother just had us involved in church activities. And the AME Church, it's just like it's kind of its own little nation. It's got its own politics, it's got its own everything. And so I was involved in church organizations. The church did its own community work. It had its own leadership systems and things like that. And that was my world. That was my just like little world. And so that's how I learned to, that was my community service.
Mhm.
I was in, things like, Girl Scouts from Brownie or from Daisies,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
up into the seniors, and whatever else I could do, the church dance groups, the church, youth uh ministry, no, well, not youth ministry, I was in a youth ministry, but just the youth supporting programming. And so I was a youth Sunday school teacher,
Yeah, yeah,
and
yeah.
so all of these things, you don't know it when you're doing it, but when you look back, they're all teaching you all these small elements about, here's how you be a leader, here's different ways to lead, here's different ways to approach communicating to people, here's different ways to engage different types of people, who have different needs, who have different, communication and engagement, styles and needs. And, I didn't know it until, I eventually left, that community, went away to school and went away to travel and things like that, how helpful it would be to apply those things.
Yeah, it's so interesting because nobody says to us when we're younger, like, hey, this is going to teach you leadership skills, right? But you do the thing, and then retrospectively we can look back. I did not know that we shared that in common. When I was in high school, I went to Catholic high school out here on Long Island, Chaminade, and I taught CCD for the public school kids. Like I was a public school kid. So growing up, before I went to Shamna, I used to go to CCD after school, after a full day. We go to religious class, like on a Wednesday afternoon. Then all these years later, I was teaching those classes. So I did not know we had that in common. So that's pretty funny. We are going to take a break in a second, but for me, I love that and yes, of course, the faith is involved, but it was community that I was hearing more so than anything out of that. Where I want to just make another quick thing. My friend Tammy Severino will be on the show next week. She's the CEO of Girl Scouts of Suffolk County. So funny that you bring up the Scouts. Both, my younger daughter is still in the scouting and whatnot. In fact, I think my wife told me, I think he's going to join Cub Scouts. So that's like a whole nother thing. So look, there's so much to get involved with the community. When we come back, I want to talk to the point of, maybe if you want to talk a little bit about the college years, stuff you learned, and then when we came back and when you come back to Brooklyn and you find North Star, and let's get into that when we come back. How's that sound?
Amazing. Awesome.
All right, let's do it. We're on a break. We'll be right back.
Are you a business owner? Do you want to be a business owner? Do you work with business owners? Hi, I'm Stephen Fry, your small and medium-sized business or SMB guy, and I'm the host of the new show, Always Friday. While I love to have fun on my show, we take those Friday feelings of freedom and clarity to discuss popular topics on the minds of SMBs today. Please join me and my various special guests on Friday at 11 a.m. on talkradio.nyc.
You a conscious co-creator? Are you on a quest to raise your vibration and your consciousness? I'm Sam Leibowitz, your conscious consultant, and on my show, The Conscious Consultant Hour, Awakening Humanity, we will touch upon all these topics and more. Listen live at our new time on Thursdays at 12 noon Eastern Time. That's The Conscious Consultant Hour, Awakening Humanity, Thursdays, 12 noon on talkradio.nyc.
Are you on edge? Hey, we live in challenging, edgy times, so let's lean in. I'm Sandra Bargman, the host of The Edge of Every Day, which airs each Monday at 7 p.m. Eastern Time on talkradio.nyc. Tune in live with me and my friends and colleagues as we share stories and perspectives about pushing boundaries and exploring our rough edges. That's The Edge of Every Day on Mondays at 7 p.m. Eastern Time on talkradio.nyc.
You're listening to Talk Radio NYC. Uplift, educate, empower.
Nonprofits need connections to move in good directions. So cut through all the static. Join Tommy in his attic.
Cut through the static, man. Join me in the attic, man. Listen, that's it right there. That's just the only song in the history of radio shows and podcasts, Kofo, the only one that shouts out the attic. Who shouts out the physical space? Not enough people do. Shout out to the attic. Hello, attic. Hello, Tommy. So, all right. So let's talk. Let's get into this now. So, can we talk a little bit about the college years? Because I again, as much or as little as you want to get into, because I think certainly from going through our leadership journeys that we did and the work we did together, I learned so much. So can you share a little bit about that? Because I think those things define us as to who we become as adults and leaders.
Yeah, sure. So I was in public school for the majority of my life in Brooklyn, through middle school and high school, and for undergrad, I went to Wesleyan in Connecticut. I actually took a gap year between high school and going to undergrad. And for that year, I just did some traveling. I did volunteer work, and that felt really nice. And then I went to Connecticut and went to
very similar to Brooklyn, right? Very similar to Bed-Stuy, right?
Just the same. It's totally the same. I went to a really small liberal arts school in Middletown, Connecticut. And though it's very close, maybe I think it's like an hour and a half away from, the city, it was definitely a culture shock for me, and this is me, born and raised in Brooklyn, center in New York City, the center of wealth and, everything. But it was definitely a culture shock for me, being surrounded by honestly, so many white people with so much money. It was really just a shock. And I think the shock for me was, living in Bed-Stuy, I was in my community, I was surrounded by my community of, people who looked like me, like I said, my life at the time was, my church, which was full of very, pretty successful, Black people, people in my church were, local Congress people, local politicians, the successful business people, they were, sorority and fraternity, representatives. And so they were successful people. So I wasn't, I was used to seeing success, but there was just a different type of exposure that I didn't have up until I just left fully that world. And so it was just being there that first, I would say 3 months or so, it was just wow, this is really people really live, this is a different life. This is people lived completely different than me. But it was still great. I credit, I learned a whole lot at Wesleyan. It was, both just the different exposure that I had, but also it's a top-notch education. Obviously, my core group of friends to this day are still my my people that I connected with at Wesleyan. We right now we just had a Zoom meeting last night. We still meet weekly. Awesome. We still talk regularly. And so Wesleyan was a trip, but it's a great place. It's a great place. And to credit the school, at least at the time, obviously it's been a minute since I was in undergrad. But to credit the school, they did at the time really try to support, especially, POC students. They were very aware that, POC students were, kind of in the minority there. And so they did try to do a lot to offer support to the community, around just being in the spaces.
Yeah. Now you also did some you studied abroad. Was that in grad school or was that in undergrad as well?
Oh, I studied abroad both places at both times. So for undergrad, I studied abroad in South Africa, in Cape Town, which is awesome. I love it. Cape Town is one of my favorite places that I've ever traveled. UCT is a top-notch university. Highly recommend, if you all have children, encourage your children to do a semester or year or something at UCT. It's a rigorous, academic institution, but I still to this day have saved, some of my papers that I wrote there, some of the readings that I, received from there. It was awesome. So excellent, education that I got there. Some of the people that I met there, I still, am in touch with till today. And also just, Cape Town is beautiful. It's, the food is amazing. It was just an awesome time.
Do you get to go back? Are you able to, pandemic aside, like in years prior, you get to travel back that way?
I actually I don't think I've been back to Cape Town since then, but I would go at the drop of a hat.
No kidding. Man, it's such a big world out there, that we don't see. I mean, I've Long Island, I've been here forever, and there's so much Long Island that we don't even see. There's so much New York State that we don't see. So, but then you get this country that you don't see, and then this whole planet that you don't see, man. There's so much out there. That's my train ride. If you can hear it, I'll probably have to leave soon, everybody, because hello, Long Island Railroad. It's been a few days since I've had to call out the railroad on the show, so that's good. Take us to Carnegie Mellon, and then really, where you started to do some work with New Voices as well.
Oh, sure. So after I graduated Wesleyan, I actually came back to Brooklyn, and I was recruited to work for, oh Lord, I was actually recruited to work for a mortgage company. And I graduated Wesleyan in '05, and I don't know if folk remember, but that was sort of at the booming, mortgages were booming, and I was recruited to work for Countrywide, which, those who know that.
I forgot we had this connection. I didn't realize until you started talking about this part of it. Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Countrywide was one of, the sort of, if not number one, number two, as one of the leaders leading the country down the drain when everything tanked. But anyway, I was recruited as a subprime loan processor at the time, because they just needed so many people, and I worked there for some time until I didn't, and then I transitioned into another area. I transitioned to work into another space where I was like, oh, well, maybe this is a little better for me. It's not direct. I worked in marketing and sales, but it was for like an energy management company that was a little bit more towards sustainability, I would say. And I was like, okay, maybe this is more, my vibe, but it wasn't really. And so I started to just feel like I needed to just completely, I needed a reset. And that's what made me decide to go back to grad school. And so that was maybe another 4 or 5 years after I had graduated from Wesleyan.
Wow. Okay, so there was a break. Yeah.
It was some time, yeah. And I had chosen and decided to go to Carnegie Mellon in Pittsburgh. And I had known, I was always deciding, do I want to do a master in public policy or a master in public administration? And, at first I was just always leaning to public administration, because I was like, look, masters in public policies are math and quant heavy, and I have not taken a math class. Like, Wesleyan was a super liberal arts college, and they were like, look, you don't have to do anything you don't want to do. And so if you don't want to take math classes, you don't have to take math classes. And I did not take math classes. And so therefore, when I was looking for my master's degree, I was like, I don't want a master's degree that I need to do a whole bunch of statistics, things. And so, but as it turns out, I actually went, I challenged myself and went for what I felt was the harder path. And so I decided on the master's in public policy path with Carnegie Mellon, which I think was definitely great. It was rigorous, I feel the better person, for it. It was a really, I think it was a really thorough program, and, super excited about it. And while I was in Pittsburgh, I was able to connect with an organization that centers, whose work is all about reproductive justice, and that's New Voices Pittsburgh. And I joined them, and eventually I started working with them as their, I think it was the program director, or some sort of director.
Well, and this has got to be what, more than 12 years ago or something like that. In that space. Yeah, not to do math on everybody, but just from a fact of, from a reproductive situation, where we are as we sit here in 2022, certainly a different world than these conversations that are going on right now. And I don't know that we're going to go into that conversation today, because we have a lot to cover on trust-based philanthropy, and certainly on North Star Fund. So let's talk about that when we come back. We're going to take a quick break. What I want to know is you're back in Brooklyn. You get this role as in development, as really, I guess, as a development assistant initially, right? Correct, when you yes. so we're going to tease everybody, because that's what we're going to talk about when we come back with Kofo. You get that role at North Star, and then we're going to go through what North Star does, the grantees, a little bit into what trust-based philanthropy is, how we need to educate people on how to do this type of work, and we'll just have more with Kofo and Tommy. We'll be right back. Philanthropy and Focus.
Are you passionate about the conversation around racism? Hi, I'm Reverend Dr. TLC, host of the Dismantle Racism Show, which airs every Thursday at 11 a.m. Eastern on talkradio.nyc. Join me and my amazing guests as we discuss ways to uncover, dismantle, and eradicate racism. That's Thursdays at 11 o'clock a.m. on talkradio.nyc.
Are you a small business trying to navigate the COVID-19 related employment laws? Hello, I'm Eric Sauber, employment law business law attorney and host of the new radio show, Employment Law Today. On my show, we'll have guests to discuss the common employment law challenges business owners are facing during these trying times. Tune in on Tuesday evenings from 5 p.m. to 6 p.m. Eastern Time on talkradio.nyc.
Hey everybody, it's Tommy D, the nonprofit sector connector, coming at you from my attic. Each week here on talkradio.nyc, I host the program Philanthropy and Focus. Nonprofits impact us each and every day, and it's my focus to help them amplify their message and tell their story. Listen each week at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time until 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, right here on talkradio.nyc.
You're listening to Talk Radio NYC at www.talkradio.nyc. Now broadcasting 24 hours a day.
Nonprofits need connections to move in good directions. So cut through all the static. Join Tommy in his attic.
Every week on a Friday morning, I do a couple of things. Well, I do a lot of things on Friday morning, but specific to this show, I do a couple of things. I meet with a friend, maybe it's an existing friend, maybe it's a new friend, who runs a nonprofit organization, who leads a nonprofit organization, and I help them tell their story, and I help them. I think I'm like an amplifier, man. I help them amplify the message. I help get the word out. I know some people. I'm a little bit connected. I have some friends, I know people, and I like to take these messages and these stories and push them out there and get them to the world. So this morning, my friend Kofo is here from the North Star Fund. Started out in 2011 as a development assistant, and over the years has earned and learned her way to the leadership role in development as director of development at the North Star Fund. Kofo, thanks for coming on the show today. Let's jump into now. Really, we've kind of set some fundamentals. We set a foundation. We got some of the basic here. Tell us about this organization. Tell us about your journey to this organization. Tell us about the impact. And let's talk and let's weave in how you would talk about trust-based philanthropy.
Sure. So I think actually before I even jump into North Star Fund, I want to go back to New Voices Pittsburgh, because I want to just connect or make the connection for folk with my work there with New Voices Pittsburgh. Their full name of the organization is actually New Voices Pittsburgh, Women of Color for Reproductive Justice. And the reason that this organization was really sort of impactful for me in my path and my journey was because there's a distinction actually between the reproductive justice movement and the reproductive rights movement. And the reproductive justice movement is one that is a bit more expansive and inclusive and intersectional than I guess the more traditional and straightforward reproductive rights movement. The reproductive justice movement is one that, yes, it does obviously concern a woman or a person's reproductive freedoms, but it connects a person's ability to live and raise their child in an environment that is free and healthy and safe. You know, they are an individual should be able to raise their child in a safe, healthy, and free environment. And so all of the elements that would make an environment not safe, not healthy for that child are part of the reproductive justice movement. All of those issues are also part of the reproductive justice movement. And those things are often are absent from the reproductive rights movement, right? And so
you feel like those things like safe, healthy, and free, what that kind of looks like in a
sure.
Tangible or practical sense?
Sure. And so, sure. When I say environment, I do mean environment, right? So in some communities, very explicitly, the environment is not healthy, right? And so the air is not healthy for children to breathe. The air is poison, for children to breathe, right? And so the environment, the physical environment for children is not safe. We already know that there are spaces where certain Black and brown children, walking down the street, they cannot safely walk down the street without fear of some sort of interaction that could affect their life, adversely affect their life, right? We already know the statistics around for Black women, the maternal health statistics around Black women, one around their abilities to give birth safely, one, and then two, to survive the year after giving birth, to a child, are, I think, 40 times less that of a non-Black person, a non-Black woman, or person giving birth. And so, all of those things are issues that are addressed and confronted within the reproductive justice movement. And many of those things, I won't say all, but many of those things are missing from the reproductive rights movement. And so I lift those up. I lift that up because those are some of the things that were just like center for me in my work with New Voices Pittsburgh when I was in Pittsburgh and when I was working on my a master's degree at CMU. And so once I had finished my master's and I was working and I was looking for my next step, my job, the only commitment that I really made to myself was that I was going to find a space that, made me feel good. I know that, every time I say this now, I'm just like, that was not a tangible goal.
Like made me feel good, right? How do you quantify that?
Exactly. Like, that was not a tangible goal for you to, like, what does that even mean? Mm-hmm. But when I said that, I was like, I want to find work, just looking back on, what my mother said, I wanted to find work that, that made me feel like I was actually helping, that I was, adding to something and not extracting, that I was actually doing a service. I was providing a service for a community that I cared about. And that when I was done at the end of the day, didn't leave me feeling icky, or,
Yeah, certainly, again, coming out of the mortgage industry for sure.
Exactly. Exactly.
Especially at that time in history. Sorry, mortgage industry. But, history is what it is. It's true. Right. But did you consider staying in Pittsburgh? Was there an opportunity to stay with New Voices?
There definitely was an opportunity to stay with New Voices, and I considered it. I didn't strongly consider it just because I have a very strong connection to New York. So yeah. I always kind of wanted to come back home, but New Voices is just always in my heart. I just, I still have a strong connection to it, obviously, and the work lives with me, walks with me. And the work is still going on.
I shared the website. I just shared it on Facebook, folks. If you want to check it out, and I shared it while we were talking. I did like a screen share. But Kofo, just before we go into North Star Fund, just thank you for delineating. I may have just assumed it had to do with certain things and reproductive rights, and you just totally brought in this, as you say, lift up, or brought in this entirely different conversation for myself, and obviously also for the people who are going to listen to this all over the world about reproductive justice. So thank you for doing that. So check that out. New Voices RJ is the .org, newvoicesrj.org if you're not on Facebook. So let's get into North Star Fund if we could now, because I really want to dive into that. How did you get there? How did you get there?
I got there just completely randomly. I saw a posting, just on like an email forward for, a part-time development associate position. I had not had any, experience in, formal philanthropy, grant making or fundraising in any way. But, the work as described, was something that I knew that I could do. It was for that position, it was, a lot of sort of like database work and data entry and stuff like that. And so I knew I could do the work. What I was interested in, and the reason I applied, even though, here I am, I just finished a master's degree program at Carnegie Mellon. I liked the organization. I read about the organization. I had spoken to a couple of people, the founder of New Voices, had known about, North Star Fund, because as a grant seeker, and, things. So I'd spoken to some people, and, I had only heard good things about it, second and third hand. And so from what I had read, I'm like, okay, this sounds like a pretty cool place, to work. And so that's really why I applied. I was like, this sounds like a cool place to get into. So this might be the way that I get into it. And from there, I guess you could say the rest is history. I applied and, interviewed, and, at the time, the organization has grown and gone through a lot of transitions since then. But at the time, the person who had hired me, she took me on and, pretty much taught me, everything that, I know from about the work that we do, about the work of, fundraising for an organization like North Star Fund, and about what we do. I don't know if we have time now, or if you want me to do it when we come back, but then I can jump into what North Star Fund actually
do
does.
it. Let's start now. It's my show. If we go long and we come back late, we'll figure it out. Let's go. Sure. Jump in.
So North Star Fund, we are a community foundation that gives grants to grassroots organizations that does work in the 5 boroughs of New York City, as well as the Hudson Valley. When I talk about our work, I like to break it down or explain it to people by saying we really do 3 things. I see our work as, us doing 3 things. North Star Fund is a grant maker, we're a fundraiser, and we are a donor organizer. And most people can pretty easily understand the first 2 as us being a grant maker and a fundraising or institution. But donor organizer is a little bit more complicated for people to get. As a donor organizer, what we do is we try to connect. As a main thing we do as a donor organizer is we try to always be connecting and educating our donors around how to be good donors to our grantees and to grantees in our communities. And I can explain what we mean by quote unquote good donors.
Yeah, let's come back on that one.
Second.
We'll dive into that. We will take a quick one. I'm going to show an article, Meet the Newest Grantees Summer 2022 edition. I'll share that. We'll go to break. Tell me when we come back what it means to be a good donor. And really, I think that'll roll into a little bit about trust-based philanthropy, because that's what we're talking about, right? All right, so this show is called Philanthropy in Focus. That's Kofo. I'm Tommy, and we're going to take a break. We'll be right back.
Hey everybody, it's Tommy G, the nonprofit sector connector, coming at you from my attic. Each week here on talkradio.nyc, I host a program, Philanthropy and Phocus. Nonprofits impact us each and every day, and it's my focus to help them amplify their message and tell their story. Listen each week at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time until 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time right here on talkradio.nyc.
In a post-COVID world, you may have many unanswered questions regarding your health. Are you looking to live a healthier lifestyle? Do you have a desire to learn more about mental health and enhance your quality of life? Or do you just want to participate in self-understanding and awareness? I'm Frank R. Harrison, host of Frank About Health, and each Thursday, I will tackle these questions and work to enlighten you. Tune in every Thursday at 5 p.m. on talkradio.nyc, and I will be frank about health to advocate for all of us.
Calling all pet lovers.
Pet Avengers, assemble!
On the Professionals and Animal Lovers show, we believe the bond between animal lovers is incredibly strong. It mirrors that bond between pets and their owners. Through this program, we come together to learn, educate, and advocate.
Join us live every Wednesday at 2 p.m. at talkradio.nyc.
You're listening to Talk Radio NYC at www.talkradio.nyc. Now broadcasting 24 hours a day.
Nonprofits need connections to move in good directions. So cut through all the static. Join Tommy in his attic.
And we are back. Philanthropy and Focus is Friday morning. Kofo Anifalaje. Anifalaje is here. I had to get the Ani part, right? I knew I needed to hit that part. Development officer, development director over at North Star Fund. I'm sharing my screen still if you're on Facebook. I'm just taken by these organizations, these grantees that your organization has directed funds towards, and also taught others from a donor organizing perspective. I just want to make a comment, and if it's going to take us on a different track, let's not, we don't have to spend too much time on it. But, when Maheen was on the show, Maheen Kaleem, Grant Makers for Girls of Color, we talked a lot about the community knows what it needs. The community actually knows what the work that needs to be done. And as I look at the explanation of the descriptions of these organizations, they know what they need to do. They don't need big corporates or donors or people who can write big checks to come in and tell them how to do what they need to do in the community, right? So can we start a little bit there? Because I think it's kind of related to what we're going to talk about.
Sure. I think towards that, in speaking about North Star Fund, yes, we definitely believe that, trust is important, and that, the best knowers of, of how to fix an issue are the people who are dealing with the issue. And towards that, I think for North Star Fund, at least, one thing that we do is, as a grant maker, something that is becoming, I think is becoming more common in, recently, but it's coming, I guess you could say, more in vogue recently. Participatory grant making is what it's called. And what that means is, at least for us, for our grant making, we as staff, our board, we do not make the grant decisions. For North Star Fund is about a little over 40 years old. It's been around for a bit, over 40 years now. And our just like our founding and sort of like grounding principles have always been about like disrupting the traditional power dynamics of things, right? And one way of doing that is disrupting how decisions around grants and how grants are awarded are made. And for North Star Fund, the way that grant decisions are made is we have established outside grant making bodies that we call our community funding committees, CFCs for short. And our community funding committees are made up of members of our communities that are, affected and impacted by the issues that we fund. Some of them are former grantees, some of them are current grantees, some of them are organizers, and activists, and, people or individuals who are at various points and elements on the spectrum, just in the world, in the community, but folks who have actual, sort of firsthand knowledge about the organizing work that we fund. They are the people who are actually reviewing our grant applications. When we do site visits, they are the people who are actually do site visits and make the assessments about the grants, who receives and the grants that we award. It's not us, it's not us administrators, I guess, on the back end, doing it. And so that's one way that in relation to what, Maheen was saying about, folks who are, closest to issues, should be the ones who are making decisions. That's one example of how, at least for North Star Fund, we try to put people who are closer to the issues in the decision-making power around the issues.
Thank you. Yeah. So that's the great stuff. We could do 3 hours on these topics easily. So what makes a good donor?
Ooh, what makes a good donor?
Because that's what we said, donor organizing. How do we do that? How to be a good donor? How do you do that? I mean, that's a loaded question. Maybe that's a big one for you, but we'll make something happen.
Mm-hmm. So, I think before I answer that, I'll just big, top level, I'll just start talking about trust-based philanthropy, because it's a facet of that, right? And so trust-based philanthropy, it's not something that North Star Fund did not, think of it, it's this is an approach, that North Star Fund is just, adopting, I don't know, who thought of it or created it. I think it's a cohort of institutions or people who came up with it. But really, trust-based philanthropy is an approach that was created really to try to address power and build equity within the philanthropic sphere. And it's really about a way to try to get philanthropy to confront the way that our sector has really deeply contributed to systemic inequity in so many ways, right? There's, if you get into the history of philanthropy, it's rife, it's ripe with, drama and inequity, and so trust-based philanthropy is really, I think, just a very intentional way for organizations to try to just directly confront it and do something about that, right? And so what it does is it offers it offers a lot of different what can you say? What is it called? Models for organizations to follow, but at its core, it's really just about a list of values that your organization can adopt in the way that it operates, in the way that it reviews and assesses the decisions, that it makes. And I think at its core, there I think maybe are about 4 or 5 values that really sort of hold up trust-based philanthropy. And I'm going by my memory about this.
Let me stop you right there. Here, I want to pause you because we are going to run out of time, and I want you to dive a little bit into North Star specific. So I can share research. This is how the show goes. We go fast. It goes like that. So I'll share resources after. If you all have resources, share them with Kofo and I about trust-based philanthropy, and let's have a conversation. Let's make this a conversation. But tell me what's happening right now at North Star, what's upcoming, and how we can help.
Oh my God, yes. So North Star Fund, yikes, so much is happening, especially in the last, I would say like 2 or 3 years. North Star Fund has just been really, we've sort of like put our head down and just like got to work. We have listened to our grantees. We've listened to our grantees about what they've needed, which is obviously more money, more support, more back-end capacity building about, which is just support about, my organization is growing, how do I, build a team? How do I help my team effectively? So we're trying to help them, give them support about, around things like that, right? So we are building out supports in those ways for our groups. We have in so many ways doubled, tripled our grant making to our organizations. North Star Fund has we have 3 core grant making groups. We give grants. We have a New York City grant making group. We have a program. We have a Hudson Valley grant making program, and we have a Let Us Breathe grant making program, which is a grant making program for Black-led organizing. And in the last 2 years, our Black-led organizing grant making program we have awarded, I would say, almost grant making in that category has, I think, tripled. We have begun giving 2-year grants, multi-year grants in all of our categories, doubled our grant amounts in, I think, almost all of our categories. And our hope is to do more over the coming year. We have a giving project that we are right now in recruitment for. Giving Project is a six-month program where we teach individuals about, it's a donor organizing opportunity, right? So education-based. And so we teach individuals the history of philanthropy. We teach you how to do fundraising from a trust-based philanthropy perspective, from North Star Fund's perspective. We teach you some background on some North Star Fund grantees, and we give you and we send you out there, do some fundraising from your own networks toward in support of our Black-led organizing fund, the Let Us Breathe Fund, and then we'll send you some more information on that if you're interested.
Yeah, so what we're gonna do is, I will share. I am considering putting in an application for that program myself. Kofo and I have been talking about it, and I tell you all because now I really have to get in it and make it happen, because now I've just put it out there to the world. Kofo, the website is northstarfund.org. How do they is that the best way to get in touch and engage with the organization?
Yes. Right. And you can get in touch with me at kofo@northstarfund.org.
KOFO @northstarfund.org. I am taking the blame for us running out of time, but I did not invent an hour that only had 60 minutes. That's sort of how it was. I misallocated today, but we will have to just make a new show and have you on the new show. Kofo, I appreciate you. I appreciate your friendship. I appreciate the insight, the great work North Star Fund is doing, and the great work you are doing as a leader in this sector, in our sector, in the nonprofit sector. Thanks for being here. I appreciate you.
Thank you, Tommy. It was a pleasure. Appreciate
it. Absolutely. Last thing I'll say to everybody is, before I say make it a great day, but make it a great day anyway. Tammy Severino will be on the show with me from Girl Scouts of Suffolk County next week here on Philanthropy and Focus. Make it a great day. Make it a great weekend. Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Kofo.